1. And we're live. Hey, everybody.
Yes.
Can everybody hear us?
Wow.
We had a couple audio issues
I
this
hope.
morning. We're going to cross all our
Damn.
fingers
Hopefully.
and hope that
Hi.
our audio is working and coming through on Twitch. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Nerds with Dice. My name is Quinn. I use any and all pronouns, and I am going to be our host / moderator for our panel today. Before we get started, I'm going to have all of our panelists introduce themselves, but first, talk a little bit about what we're doing and why we're here. This panel, as with all of our panels through the month of March, is part of our Screens We Share event, which is a charity event supporting Open Cupboard, a food pantry in Minnesota. Throughout the whole month of March, we have been encouraging new and newer GMs to really, step into the GM's seat, take that first step to GMing, or GMs who have already been GMing off stream to come and GM their very first actual play. So far, I believe we've had 3 different games happen already this month, and we have 4 more. 3 or 4 more. We have 7 total new GMs, and we've had a bunch of different panels already. We've got this one today. We have another panel tomorrow that is continuing communication at the table with a just fantastic group of people. I'm very excited for that one as well. We've already had some really awesome panels. We had a Session 0 panel happen already. Where I know,
3-hour Session 0
talked
panel.
for a lot. You all had a great time talking in that one, and really, really good information from that one. So
we're starting this one at 9 a.m., right?
yeah, that's why we're starting this one super early. We're gonna talk all day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I am going to throw some things into our chat right now, really quickly, which is all of our donation information and our giveaways that are happening this month. So as I mentioned, we're raising money for Open Cupboard throughout the event. They are a smaller charity, so they're not on Tiltify. So the way to donate is to go to the link that I just put in the chat, which is on one side of me. Wherever the chat normally is on Twitch, it hasn't moved. And to make a donation and then send proof of that donation to nerdswdice@gmail.com. You can donate any amount. Any amount that you donate automatically enters you into our giveaways for this month. We have raised $25 so far, so we're a fourth of the way to our first giveaway, which is at $100. We will be giving away PDFs of some different games. When we reach, if we reach $250, we will be giving away a $20 gift card to Friday Afternoon Tea. And if we reach $400 in the next week and a half, we will be giving away a gift card to Heartbeat Dice. No matter how much we raise throughout the month, anyone who donates is automatically entered in a giveaway for a $50 Die Hard Dice gift card. That is our prize at the end of the month for anyone who has donated. So again, I threw those in the chat. I will continue to throw those in the chat throughout our time here. But that's enough about all of our introductory stuff, and we're going to get into our panel today. I have a bunch of questions. I'm sure we won't get through them all, but folks are also encouraged to throw your own questions in the chat. I'll make sure I keep my eye on that. But to start...
I'm also watching.
Yep. Yeah, if anyone sees a question in the chat, let me know. Interrupt me at any point in time, because I definitely want to get to our audience questions if we get any. But our first, just to go around and introduce yourselves. Everyone, I'd love you to go around and just say your name, your pronouns, your experience with TTRPGs, right? Generally speaking, what's your experience with tabletop? And then more specifically, what's your experience with running campaigns, since that's the thing that we're here to talk about. So we're going to go in overlay order, which is Hector, you are right next to me. So go ahead and take it away.
All right. Hi. My name is Hector Reyes, aka Okami, or Keiichi Okami, all over the internet. My pronouns are he, they, and I say as a tagline in all of my promo that I've been the brown kid at the gaming table since 1989. My experience with TTRPGs started when I was very young. I was about nine years old when I purchased my first D&D Basic, the black box. So I have been consistently playing TTRPGs of different genres. As a teenager, I got caught up in the wave of Vampire the Masquerade. Got really into LARP. I've played all kinds of games, Dungeons and Dragons, little bit of Traveler, GURPS. I've played Amber Dice List. I've played like all those old man games, like, you know, and the dusty comic book shop. I played all of those, maybe not necessarily as they came out, but like I was of a generation of gamers when White Wolf games were new and edgy and were the indie games, you know, on the market. And I've just continued to play and play and play and play. My experience with long-term campaigns is long-term campaigns in the late 80s, early 90s kind of were the norm. So I've actually been running long-term campaigns since I was like 13 or 14 years old. Um, while one shots have been more of the like rare commodity. Now that I'm doing actual play, it's kind of become the reverse. I think it's because of all the investment in like production value and such. So long-term games typically are things that, while they're the goal to record, they're not my default when I do AP stuff. Usually one shots and miniseries is what I do. And for home games, you know, so many people over the years that I've been in my gaming group have been like, oh, I hate one shots. I want a long-term game. Or I'll run a one shot and then all of a sudden everyone will fall in love with their characters and we have to go back and we have to play it again. I've had so many long-term campaigns just start as oh, I want to try this new system, and then everyone falls in love with their characters. So that is who I am in the space and why I am here. Who would we like to pass it on to, Quinn?
We're gonna go over overlay box order. I don't know if you can see that. Neon, you're next.
Yeah. Hi.
Yep,
Hi,
there we go.
everyone. My name's Neon. I use she, her pronouns. And oh boy, I have been GMing for, gosh, I wish I could say something really impressive like Hector. But but I'm not quite as I'm younger. I'm so much younger. But no, I played my first ever TTRPG was D&D 4E back when I was 10, I think, something like that. Yeah, I know, baby. But I have been GMing and running campaigns since the release of 5E back in 2012. So I have been GMing for over half of my life. And that is just going to be the way that it is until I die. Started with D&D, and have since been picking up systems left, right, and center. Everything from the, oh boy, like Vampire Masquerade, White Wolf games, things like that, to things like Thirsty Sword Lesbians and all the cool Powered by the Apocalypse games and hacks that are everywhere all over the internet, to things like Pretty Beastly by M. Hubbard, which uses cards and is GM-less, which is really cool, and like just all these cool indie projects from amazing people that I have come to call friends over the years of doing this, and I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, we're gonna go down the overlay now to Crimson.
Hi everyone, Crimson Soul, he, him. Normally Cyberpunk VTuber, today here a panelist. I have been GMing now for roughly about 8 years. It really just kind of started off, it's been 9 years that I've been playing. I played Dungeons and Dragons for the first time back in like 2017 or something like that. And after that was like, you know, I'm having fun with this, but I feel like there's something that's closer towards the experience what I'm looking for elsewhere, and started GMing Call of Cthulhu. And so stayed inside of Call of Cthulhu, stayed inside of Delta Green for a long time before I started bouncing out into all these other series, all these other systems that I picked up. And from there, it's just kind of whatever I can get my hands on is what I decide I want to throw my friends into. And yeah, it's very much a kind of similar to what Hector said recently, is that a lot more in one shots nowadays that end up turning into longer campaigns, because you start off in the session 0, you start talking, and everyone starts talking about their characters, and then you get like an hour and a half into the session 0, and you're like, we're doing a lot of world building for a game we're only going to play one time.
Shout out to Quinn's Last Kiss character.
Okay, Neon. With that, we're gonna move over to Zeal to Scott to finish off our introductions.
All right. So I don't know if I'm as old as Hector. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm older. I don't really know. But I will say that all the games he's mentioned, I have played and enjoyed. Weirdly, I started GMing before I ever played a TTRPG because my mom bought me the red box D&D kit, and I had nobody that played. So I dragged my friends into a room and tortured them with me GMing something I had no idea how to do, which is kind of like how I see most people's first experiences, or they don't really know what they're doing, and it's very easy to get lost in the sauce, as they say. So then the first game I actually played was not D&D, it was Traveler, which was a kind of a different experience because my first character died during roll up, which is a bizarre experience to have.
Utterly bizarre.
But I've been running for most of my life since I was 14. It actually pulled me out of a dark hole in my life when my brother had passed away, and I kind of lost 2 years of my life to I don't have memories of, which is a weird experience. And then it pulled me into a place where I found new friends, supported my brain's nerdiness, because I'm not just a D&D nerd or a TTRPG nerd. I'm a nerd about everything, science and philosophy and whatever. I love it all. Keep your brain active. That'll make you a much better GM. As far as the types of games, I used to love campaigns, and then I realized I played in campaigns and they almost never reached a conclusion. And then I ran some campaigns, and I ran a 3-year-long actual play that had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It felt great for everybody to have that in. It was sad, yes, but it was powerful. But I kind of found that in actual plays, I love the mini campaign. I want 8 to 12 episodes, gives you enough for character development and growth and arcs, but you also get to feel the beginning, middle, and end as a continuity in a time period. That said, I'm getting ready to start a Daggerheart campaign that is going to be a long one because I want to learn Daggerheart, and I'm going to torture my players by learning on them. And I only do one-shots for charity streams because I don't love one-shots as much as I love mini campaigns. And I would actually rather do mini campaigns for charities, to be honest. So I think there's still more value there.
I'm with you on that one, personally.
So that's us. And I have some very weird things that I'll talk about later that are coming too. Like a role-playing game show is on its way.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, yeah, now that we've done our introductions, no more going in order. I'm just going to start asking questions. Just go ahead and interrupt each other and fight for who goes first. Sit there silently and don't talk
Arm
for
wrestle.
5 minutes. Yeah, arm wrestle through the screen, whatever you want. So yeah, I'm just going to, I have the way that I have kind of structured this, structured vaguely, is talking kind of, Scott, like you were just saying, like beginning, middle, end, right? Like thinking in some kind of like order through talking about like, okay, when you're starting a campaign, when you're in the campaign, when you're ending the campaign. We'll see if we have time, speaking of time, to go through all of those kind of, steps and processes. But starting the beginning, right? I know we've already kind of mentioned through the introductions that there's lots of different ways to get into a campaign. Right, like it might be totally accidental because you just had a really great one shot, and then all of a sudden people are like, "Okay, let's turn this into a campaign. Let's keep playing. We love these characters." Right? But for you, when you get to the point when it's like, okay, we know that we're going to run a campaign, right? Maybe a year-long campaign, maybe a mini campaign. I think we can think about both of those here. When you reach the point of like together collectively as a table deciding, let's make this a campaign, where do you as the GM, what's your starting place? right? What's kind of the stuff that gets you started? What's the stuff you want to have established at the beginning? Where do you kind of start with your own like prep and stuff like that?
I mean, I'll jump on this first because I know
Mhm.
exactly where it starts for me, which is a campaign doesn't start for me until I've had that eureka moment of like a specific scene or moment that I want to happen, and all the things that contextualize that kind of come in. My campaigns always start with the like, yeah, and the big bad evil guy, or like whatever you want to call him, the antagonist, has this moment where this thing is achieved and it's the super powerful thing, and then I go, cool, we have the end point, let's pull it back, and I start building backwards, um and setting up that like story frame of like, how do we get there, let's pull it back, and then you start to go, what if, and how, why, and you just keep asking why until you're starting to ask why like a toddler, about like, why is the sun in the sky, and you go, because it is.
Uh, I think for me, like in the beginning, my process has changed so much over the decades. It has not stayed the same. My most current process is I know what game I want to run. I have some notes on the setting, maybe like a paragraph or two. Some of the NPCs with agendas, maybe a couple of factions. Uh, and then I leave it as a skeleton once I have like kind of the color of the setting, and then I start reaching out to people to play it. And then there's their characters as they make it inform the campaign and give me my long-term arcs. And that is a change from how I used to do it. I used to, very similar to Neon, be like, okay, I have an endpoint, I have a scene, and I got to get to it. Um, and I ran into some in my journey, in my experience, I ran into some issues, because people want what they want, players want what they want. They all had their different agendas, and over the years, I kept like kind of running into this brick wall of like, oh, it's not necessarily about getting to this event. Um, like I have played and watched Neon's campaigns, and Neon is a great way of like just sort of flowing you to that end state. But little like 15, 16, 18-year-old Hector was not would get really caught up in that. So I've had to just kind of like change it up. Um Also, my friend Gabe, which I will occasionally do, used to do this thing with his long-term campaigns where he would pick a player in our player pool amongst our friends who has a particular game that they love and style of game, and would be very transparent and say, I am running this campaign for this player. And people who are open to this kind of campaign for this setting, for Amber, for example, our friend Amber. Amber likes romance. Amber likes action. Amber really likes Exalted or Blue Rose. And Gabe would be like, I'm running this campaign for Amber. Everyone else is welcome. No one is like, this is not about Amber's character being the star. This is about Amber, the player, enjoying themselves. And I have played in and I have structured long-term campaigns that way as a gift to a friend in our group.
Wow.
And that can be a very like focusing, right? It's almost like the inverse of the main character syndrome. It's like out of main character syndrome, like, and then if everybody kind of vibes, they could be like, oh, it's an Amber game. I love Amber games. Like, I love games that are, for this particular person. Um, and then I have long-term campaigns where I will just like sit back and like see what the players want. Sort of like the flip of the first thing, right? The first thing is very much like, here is my vision. You like my vision, join. And then I didn't used to do that because I would like put my players like tastes first. And then I had a couple of experiences where I ended up like ranting on social media about how I have this dream game that has this and this and this and this as like a vent. And this was I want to say like the 2010s where I did this when social media was starting to really wave up. And then all of a sudden I found people just posting, posting, post. That sounds great. I want to play in that. I want to be in this. I wanted that. And that changed my style from being very like, well, I have to build games depending on who I'm running for, all the time, constantly. My dream vision can go on the shelf to just being transparent with people about like this is the game I want to run, and the people that are interested in that will gravitate towards you, which is very different. You couldn't really do that before social media unless you were really close with your friends. You
Mm.
just kind of had to like hope. And mind you, this is one of those things where I'm talking about like productive and healthy, like kinds of games, like the to get your best case scenario. But we're not here to talk about horror stories. We're here to teach you how to be a success at long-term campaigns.
I feel
Uh,
like my method is a little ill-advised. I kind of like I try to buy into the fiction of whatever book series I'm reading at the first
100%.
place. And so it's, like as I'm picking up a new system, can I see myself in it? Can I see a story that I could tell inside of it? Once I do, I lay down the barest possible skeleton at all. I have a bad guy, I have the
Yep.
things that they want, and I have like a couple of like other people who exist in the world, just in like what their alignments might be, and that's literally it. And then from that point onward, I reach out to players and I pick people into the game, and we have our session 0 and we make our characters and we see how our characters overlap and the things that they want. And then in the time period between session 0 and session 1, I take all that info they gave me and I just like I build everything else from the skeleton around it, so that way we're ready to go. But it's very much the prep happens between session 0 and session 1, and then at that point it's GM's just all improv. uh but a really interesting thing that I like to do is I like to, while I do that, I also like to start crafting B plots and C plots as like things that pick up from the things that the players say. I have a game going on right now. I made a character for my players that they kind of hate. It's just kind of funny how that works. I made prickly people by accident. They kind of hate, and like their dad runs a tech company, and so I built in the fact that like they have a whole other thing they got going on. But on top of that, that person's dad runs a tech company, and I kind of like halfway joked about there being a monster inside of the computers. So like that's they latched onto that, and that's the thing that we have a B plot going on that way, and we have another C plot that I kind of hinted at just based off of like ways they've talked about things going on in the game. So a lot of my game happens in the game more so than like pre-plotting beforehand.
I'm actually, it's so funny when Hector was talking about how he built his skeletons and how you run yours. I actually lean more towards how you do it, Crimson. I do skeletons by building some factions and some ideas early around whatever I feel like the game is going to feel like. But then I use this magic tool, Decima, which every GM should get. And I make, and into session 0, almost like a pre-session 0, we will build characters and connections together. And then from that, I do like you. I start building out, well, outside of my arcs that I had planned, which almost never happen because I don't expect them to happen. They're there for if things go wrong or the players find a moment where it's not working, then I'll pull those back in as like, just like you said, B plots and C plots. They're there as support when things are not working well. But I build most of what I do based on the players' interactions in session 0 and character building. I force them to build interconnections, so I don't have to meet in a tavern. We can start in much better, more interesting positions. And then, I mean, your players will tell you exactly how you want to kill them, how they want you to murder them or torture them or love them or whatever it is that they want. they'll tell you along the way. And then I do a lot of prep between sessions, just like Crimson said. I rewatch my last stream, take notes because I can't take all my notes during the game. I take some,
Mhm.
and then I start building out. Okay, the next session is going to do this. Is there continuity from an arc? Yes. Build from that and start adding, and the players will guide you right to their own end, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think refreshing on kind of my initial statement, as important as it is to find that motivation for you, whether it be something that you're reading, something that you're watching, a scene or a character or an inspiration that you've found for yourself while just thinking about your campaign. Something that always is at the heart of when I'm running something is collaborative storytelling. If I wanted something to go exactly as I planned, I'd sit down and I'd write a book.
Yeah.
You're not writing a book, you're writing a game, and it's collaborative. And so, yes, find that scene, find that moment, find that novel that inspires you. But when you're sitting down to write your campaign, ask why about everything, and that includes your players. During your session 0, listen to them, listen to what their challenges are, what is the theme that their character is trying to explore, what is their character's backstory. It's like, oh well, my parents died and a dragon attacked our town and my parents died, and so now I'm out to kill all dragons. Start asking why, not to your player but to your narrative. Why did the dragon attack the town? Why
Mhm.
did the parents die? Why did this? Why did that? Why? And so by the time I'm running any given game, my world is an actual living, breathing thing that my players exist within. And God, players love having those moments of I don't even know what's going on over there. But the fact that something is happening over there makes this world feel real.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Instead of, the cardboard cutout we're working through X line of story points. But it can be everything from small details to oh yeah, you're in a tavern and some people in the back corner are talking about, I don't know, some book that they read lately that just came out. It's what does that matter to the plot? Not at all, but they're talking about it and your players
Mhm.
can hear them and it makes it feel real.
Not at all yet. The players may
Not
make
at
it
all
part of the
yet.
plot.
Yeah.
Okay, on
It
that
might
same
become
note,
it.
that is a fun thing I like to do from time to time, is to where I just have a rumor mill pop up next to my players,
Yeah.
and just
Mhm.
if they pick up on one of those, then hey, that's a plot point to look on down the line. That's a B plot, that's a C plot somewhere else. If not, then you do your own business. But yeah, I heard that at 3 a.m. every night downtown, if you say this person's name 3 times, a ghost appears. Oh wow, that's interesting. And now you've got a whole other
Mhm.
they're there at 3 a.m. now. Where's the ghost?
Mhm.
Yeah, there's a thought exercise where we used to call bees in LARP, which in other I think Matthew Colville calls it Orcs Attack,
Yep.
where you can have an isolated encounter that how the mechanics work, how it's going to impact the immediate scene, but then you listen to your players and their theories, you write them all
Yeah.
down, and then you build your plot based around what the players have come up with, and you let them do the work for you essentially. And that is a really interesting improv exercise if you're running, especially if you're running a continuous long-term campaign and you're just sort of running dry of ideas, or you need something, everybody's on C and you need to get to D, but nobody's wanting to go to D. You could just be okay, what can I do to kind of keep this exciting and keep this going? Oh, I'll just throw something in that doesn't make sense, and then as the players make sense of it, then you could be oh, I can hook that into this plot and into this plot. um and it's a really, really good improv tool for long-term campaigns. And
Mhm.
we I stumbled with it a little bit because my friends would, gamers, sometimes they can go hit the dope, no, there's no reason, and I'm no, the bees have to be there for a reason, and they're no, Hector, it doesn't. You just have to watch everyone freak out, and I'm okay, I'm still gonna write out all their freakouts, just to see where it goes.
I had made a GM's tutorial that's on YouTube about 4 or 5 years ago, I guess. And it's funny, the whole point was all you need to be is one step ahead of the players if you want to GM. In the interim, I've thought I kind of actually feel it's the other way. It may be better to start a foot ahead of them, but then take 2 steps back and let them go ahead of you. Because they will build your world for you if you let them. You just have to open up. You have to empower them to be creative in your world, not that your world exists regardless of they're there. Make them feel like it exists because they're there, and it really makes the world feel more enticing. In my Magnus Archives game, I had a villain who was an architect of the building that the Magnus Archives was in, and I thought, oh, she'll be really interesting as like a C plot. And Quinn dragged it into a full A plot. I'm like, okay, that will totally be cool as shit. I will go with that. It was so fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
And it's so important. Like, and everybody has their different style. Like, my friend Nick, oh my gosh. Okay, they had this style where they run living worlds where like they have like factions and NPCs in the background moving and responding and doing things. Because we had talked about like Zeal, you had mentioned earlier about the idea of uh like the players are like the focus and they build the world and whatnot. But then like my friend Nick would the way their brain worked was just incredible because they would just be like, oh no, all these other NPCs you left behind at court, they didn't just disappear. Like they have been doing all of these things and whatnot, and then responding and doing counter moves to what your characters have been doing. And I mean, my character didn't take it well in that campaign and was just like, oh, you thought I was inconsequential? Like dead, you know. But it can be really interesting. Like I can't run like that. Like I can do a little bit of that, but like my brain is very very focused on my players' arcs. But there are other GMs out there who can like play the game, and also there are some campaigns like Blades in the Dark, or there's some games that have mechanics that if you're not that kind of person and you can't just like freehand your NPCs and your factions, Blades in the Dark does a really good job of gamifying that for you through their faction system, where all you got to do is maybe roll some dice, take into account what your players are doing during downtime. And once you get the little mini game going, like, you just gotta, you just go with the flow with how all the factions are working.
No, absolutely. It's as somebody who like I run mainly horror and horror adjacent games. So like one of my long form campaigns right now, which is currently on hiatus, is an Emergent campaign. If you haven't checked out Emergent yet, Emergent TTRPG is phenomenal stuff. It's become quickly one of my home systems. I love it so much. But Shattered Future, live on Logomancy Media, the YouTube videos will be going up eventually when I get to them. It's my little baby, so I'm a little bit scared to get in and edit them and brush them up properly. However, all that aside, one of the key aspects of horror is controlling perspective. When you go back and read classic horror, things like Bram Stoker's Dracula, the original Frankenstein, that sort of gothic horror, one of the things that makes Dracula, especially in Bram Stoker's novel, very intimidating, very scary, is how little we actually see of Dracula, how little we as the reader know about what's going on in the situation. And so for those genres of games, I very much flesh out my world in such a way where they are these big living breathing tapestries of things, but my players get to see 5% of it. And there's an aspect of the horror there where they're like, we know something is bigger, we can see that the tapestry is moving beyond our capable vision, but we don't know what is moving out there. And so it's important when you're choosing your game and your vibe and your genre, when you approach your world building, to take that into account, because I have, a heroic home Daggerheart game where they are heroes out on an adventure, and that's very much more in line with Zeal's like build the world around them. Nothing else. Like the world exists because of them. And like, yeah, when they are the heroes of the story and it's that bright fantasy vibe, do that. Make the world exist because the heroes are there and they're there to save them. But when you're doing, something like Call of Cthulhu or Candela or something horror driven, limit that scope of what your players can see, what they know about the world, and what they can perceive about the world. Because that control of vision is so important to defining your genre and how your campaign feels.
Oh, that's something that's really cool, actually, because Mothership touches on that a lot. Actually, as you're reading the GM guide for Mothership, it brings up the tomb system, and the sense to where like you're in Mothership, you would create the world around your horror, and then you find a way to put your players into it. The start of it is that the T in tombs, a threshold has already been crossed.
Right.
By the time your players start into the story proper, either they fucked up or somebody else has fucked up, and they are dealing with the consequences of a chain of events that is already in motion.
Okay.
Next. Oh yes.
I'm
questions.
gonna
We're still on the same question. We've
Wait,
been doing
you're
it for
still
last-
here?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm
Next
still
question.
here, guys. Because that leads me. You all lead me into the question so nicely. Because right from what we're talking about, basically, yeah, it's. I love that there's no one way, right, to like start a campaign, right? It's going to depend on the system. It's going to depend on you as a GM. It's going to depend on your players, right? I think the important thing from this conversation is like finding the thing that gets you as the GM into it and the thing that works for your table. But a lot of the things you're like Neon, like right, talking about like the web, right? I know your web because I've seen your web.
You've seen
for
one
that
of my
game.
webs.
Oh my gosh.
One of them.
I've seen one of the webs for that game. Leads into kind
These
of
bitches don't know about Pangea.
the practical question that I have off of that, right? Because you're talking about tracking a lot of information, right? All of these different ways of world building, right? I know, again, Scott, like referencing that Magnus Archive campaign, we all wrote you pages of backstory for that game. And that's a lot to keep track of. Like when you start to have your A plot, your B plot, your C plot, your things that are moving in the shadows in the background and the darkness. So just the kind of practical question of how do you as a GM keep track of that? I heard you, Scott, talking about like if your games are recorded, going back and listening to them in between, referencing some of like the practical tools and things that you use for some of the world building, but just kind of speaking to the practical, if there are like tools or again websites. I know Neon, you've got what you use, but how do you track all your plots and not lose any of them?
So I've got two things. One of them is one of them is kind of evil. The first of which is that I track all the like big story things. I have my own like Discord server for just me. And so in there, I do a lot of like keeping track of individual campaign things per channel and like notes and things I need to hang on to. The evil thing, however, is that I found that in the majority of my games, my players love to continue to be their characters outside of the game. So what I've done is I've given them all a Google Doc where they can write as their character and they keep their individual like colors per character, and everyone has something to say everyone has something to say about every NPC or everything that goes on in the world, and they say it in their own funny way between each other. They've got like notes and memes that happen between from color to color, and they'll keep track of everything that happens in the game for me. I don't have to do anything at that point.
Absolutely.
You say that, and I have players generally, they'll have one or two of them will have a notebook, like a journal that they keep of their character. Super useful, but the idea of giving them all one,
and it's just
I'm
shared,
totally
so
on
they can
that.
all talk to each other in it.
Yeah, shared.
Right.
Oh,
gosh,
I'm in on that.
I've done so many different tools over the years. Currently, I bounce between Google Docs and a handwritten notebook. I just sort of slingshot between the two. Handwritten notebook is for like when I'm late at night and all of a sudden I get struck with inspiration. I just grab the notebook, grab a pencil, write it down while I have like music or an actual play or a podcast playing in the background, and I'll just write it down. when I'm like really, really like, okay, this is what's going to happen, then I'll put it in the Google Doc for like bigger brain things. But it slingshots back and forth between the two consistently.
Mhm.
Mostly because like some of the stuff that I really liked to use, the campaign managers I like to use, are like defunct. Like for a good solid decade, I used Obsidian Portal, which is still up. It is a piece of open source, essentially wiki software, which allows you to write adventure logs, enter characters, keep GM secrets, upload art, upload maps. And there's other ones out there like World Anvil, Scabbard. I think Scabbard had a thing where you could literally create your web. You would just like input all the NPCs and you could input the relationships, and it would be this big interconnected thing. Some people use the software Obsidian, not Obsidian Portal, but Obsidian, which is like a little diamond.
That's
Uh,
funny.
Obsidian OneNote is also pretty good if you have like your Office 360 on your desktop, and you don't want it like all on the internet, and you want like a secure copy like on your OneNote is pretty good. There's a lot of great YouTube channels that will go through the process of keeping your campaigns on there nice and clean with their character sheets and everything. Um, I would definitely like those would be my recommendations. Like the bouncing between Google Drive and my personal notebook will probably be where I am for a long time. But let me tell you something: a good campaign manager, whether you set it up in OneNote, whether you set it up in Google Docs, whether you set it up in Obsidian Portal. These are all excellent uh, tools that you can use that your players can access. Sometimes, like we used to have like in character. I had long term campaigns where they would do like in character recaps, and you could like tag like what character was like telling, and sometimes my players would like write the session as like a short story from their character's perspective, uh, and you would get like their thoughts and everything, and then like different things would sometimes they would be just their inner thoughts, sometimes they would be in world letters that were being sent to one of my npcs, like we used to call it blue booking. So like before the internet, you would get the little blue books that you used to like that you get in college to like write your long form essay tests. Well, like gaming clubs used to buy those, and they used to like write, and you could get XP for like stuff that you did in between sessions and downtime. And so blue books, character notebooks, like a shared something. Like the web has made things a lot more accessible in terms of being able to do more robust blue booking. So that's how I keep track of my
Yeah.
long-term campaigns. I make sure to like have a campaign manager of some kind, whether that is my notebook in Google Docs or one of the others I mentioned.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm gonna take a second to just really tell y'all to get onto Obsidian.
Go ahead.
Obsidian is my campaign manager and note taker of choice, specifically because of how it organizes things. It works with my brain and how I like to structure my stories and my worlds. Due to this fun little thing called backlinking, which means in any given document, you can link to any other given document that exists within your file system. So I can't show y'all exactly my my world stuff here, but I have my campaign folder, and then in that campaign folder, I have different places, events, items, characters, player characters, all different folders that contain these pieces of information. And as I link them together, Obsidian automatically generates a web graph for me that shows how big the file is based on how big the node, the size of the dot is, and then what it's connected to with a bunch of lines leading stuff over and off to different places. Not to mention you can color code all your little dots. So as I am preparing to GM, or if I'm very much like Zeal, I like to go and listen back to my episodes or my sessions. Even my home game I record using Audacity.
Nice.
Just because for some reason the built-in Windows like voice recorder stops at 3 hours, I don't know why, but they're just like, anything past 3 hours, fuck you. And I'm like, okay. So
Okay.
I use Audacity, I record my sessions, I listen back to them, and I make notes and I listen to what my players are saying, and I go, okay, like cool. My in my home Daggerheart game, I have a Divine Wielder Seraph. So they are a paladin type character who has a magic sword that is divinely given upon them and bestowed, like an Excalibur sort of deal, right? So the player has a document in my Obsidian, and the sword has a document in my Obsidian, and they are linked. And then I can link that sword to other things that have happened in the world. And then I can, link the player to different things that have happened. And sometimes those things are the same things, sometimes they're different things. And when I'm viewing any given document, I can click on the name of anything else that is, connected to that document and go, oh yeah, like they're in Tide Mouth, the seaside city of wherever the hell they are. And I need the tavern keeper's name really quick. Ah, good thing I can just click on that link right here from here. Click. Okay, that's who that person is. And good thing I can go back and I can have multiple things open, and like it is really more than anything. Obsidian works for my brain. I also am a little bit of a software developer and a coder, and it's open source. So if I want to change something, I can go do that. But if you're not of that brain, there's a bunch of community plugins that are available for you to download and use. For instance, in my Daggerheart game, there is a Dagger Forge extension for Obsidian that has all of the pre-built stat blocks and the capacity for you to make your own stat blocks for monsters and adversaries and things like that as well in environments. So like the tools are there, but really what matters is finding the thing that works best for you. Not
It's
to
really
mention, one of
funny.
my players is my roommate. They have a journal, and they're also Seraph that talks to their god. And since they live in the house, I, as their god, will go and write in their journal.
So it's actually really funny that you talked about Obsidian the way you are and how you can search for things, because in my notes, especially because my notes are digital, I write everything out in a very search indexable way. Like it's very much, I'm just like, and then here's Kayla Waylance, proprietor of the Leighton Swallow, the only inn in town. And so then when I'm like writing something out later, like I do that for the first time, and then after that I can just look for the name because if I'm looking for it. So if I'm scrolling and I'm like, who owns the bar? The only Okay, cool, there we go. Like everything that when I make a character, when I put them in for the first time, is very much like the first Wikipedia, the first time someone's mentioned in a Wikipedia article, they're hyperlinked with everything you need, and then you have to just look for that first one so that everything else kind of expands outward as a web.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I've been
what-
using I've been using hyperlinks in Google Docs to, I'll just be like, writing about an NPC, and then I'll have like a hyperlink and I'll click on it and that will take me to the other Google Doc, which is
Okay.
I've been using Google Docs similar to how Neon's been using Obsidian, where I'll just be like, okay, I also learned a trick from another on YouTube. God, I can't remember his name. He's like a Spanish uh YouTuber, but he was talking about how like no, British, he's British, about how like you can in Google Docs have notes, and those notes can be like invisible to your players. So like you can have like a page about an NPC, but on that you can have notes that only you can access, that your players can't see, that will give you all the secrets and the full stat blocks. That way you could be like, oh, here's the Google Drive for the campaign, but you could still kind of curate all of your
Right.
plot secrets in like a separate window, while your players can, have like a hub. They're just like, yeah, I remember meeting that NPC, and be like, oh yeah, this is the document. If you guys want to look at it like on your downtime to refresh yourselves, but still keep, the fact that they're like a spy working for the crown on a side note, to just kind of remind yourself.
Yeah. I mean, really, when we're talking about this world building, we're really talking about two things. One of them is the GM's understanding of what they're running, because if you're going to start GMing, know that you have to know a lot about the world, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be lost so fast, because the players are going to go to the edge of it as fast as they can get. So, of whatever your knowledge is. The other one is immersion. Your world building is so you can create better immersion for the players, right? They're not the same thing, but they're interconnected. So if you're starting out, the first time you run, the most powerful thing you can do for the immersion side is make good lists of names, locations, factions that you've not done anything with, because they're going to find places you haven't prepped. So you have to be pre-prepped for those moments when you're not prepped. And the last thing you want to do is have 8 NPCs named Ted. So be ready.
Unless
unless that's
It's all
part of the
Teds.
point.
unless that's the point.
Unless
Leon
it's the
in one of
point,
my
right?
games does
The
have
Teds.
what? How many
16. It's 16 Johns, and they're all my dad.
16 Johns. I love it.
Yeah, they
So,
run a
names from
construction
different
company called
places.
Construction Business Ltd. It's great.
Yeah.
So I have lots of lists of names from different places, businesses, organizations, because there's organizations in every city, including fantasy cities. There are
Mhm.
charitable organizations. There are, political organizations. There are counter political organizations. All of these don't need a lot of prep, but they need at least names, because it will be dropped if you want it to be dropped, or they'll make you come up with one. So have lots of names. I know on a few of them have a few notes, but be ready, like in the middle of a game and you have to pull up a name, have it sound like it's the name from the place you're talking about. Because if you start having, if you're running a game in the modern world and you have a Russian defector, their name is not likely going to be Aaron. Just so you know.
Yeah, it will probably be something like Sasha. Like,
And I mean, that extends to your fantasy worlds too. I know when I'm doing
100%.
world building, especially I'm going to talk about my Daggerheart game a lot because it's what I'm running right now. There are a number of factions, and one of them I'm like, yeah, all the names from this faction I'm going to pull from, like Latin and Latin based languages, versus like this area is going to be more like Middle Eastern, Arabic, Hebrew sounding, and like this area is more this, and like these cultures are more this. What matters is that you make those choices with intention. I think more than anything else, the one thing that we've been like all saying but never directly saying is intention is key. When you do something, do it for a purpose, for a reason. If you're gonna name an NPC Zahir, understand what Zahir means, and use that to its best of intention. I know in a session 0, or maybe it was when we were talking for this panel when it was originally supposed to be done and we had tech issues. When we were talking, I was like, yeah, no, like this NPC is named Morrigan because I'm pulling from Irish myth.
Yep.
Or their middle name is Bridget because I'm pulling from Irish Catholic background and myth, and there's a meaning to that.
Yep.
And there's a meaning for that character in this name. And especially like as your players move through and interact with NPCs, you can find very small ways to show them what this character means or who this character is without blatantly telling them. Like if I'm going to introduce a spy backstabbing NPC that the party's going to interact with, I'm not going to make them behave, untoward or suspiciously, because that would ruin the surprise up front. But I might name them something that means like shadow or shade or betrayer, or like you could name them Judas if you so feel inclined. And it's a nod, it's a point in the right direction that helps the story move forward, even if your players never directly go, oh, wait, that name is a reference to the biblical traitor that everyone knows and loves and hates and has complicated feelings about. Anyway, like pull on tradition art. We're making art here. When you make your campaign, you're making art. And I need you to understand, hello, new GM, hi. No art that you ever make will be new. It's all going to be copied and pulled from things that you have read. There's no such thing as new art. But embrace that. Embrace pulling from cultures. Embrace pulling from the stories that you read, the movies that you love, the TV shows that you think about late at night when you can't sleep and you go, wow, oh my God, I can't believe that thing happened. because no matter how original of a thought you think you have, I guarantee you somebody out there has had the same thought. They've done it
Mhm.
maybe to a lesser, greater, or exact same extent as you have. But do it, lean on it. It exists for a reason.
Yeah.
And this happens everywhere. Music, stories, literature, like everywhere. It's okay.
Yeah. Like Song of Ice and Fire is like a pastiche about the Lancasters and York families, the War of the
Yep.
Roses in England, right? Essentially, like George R. R. Martin loves history books and reads them for fun. And was like, oh, I think I could write a compelling novel, fantasy novel about these inspired by these
Mhm.
historical events. Just to give you all an example of like, even like the best, most successful storytellers have
Mhm.
And
something else that
unique.
they're pulling, and unique, yes, have something else they're pulling from.
Yeah,
It's still
always.
unique.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Like who would have thought like, the conflict between the Yorks and the Lancasters could be cast in such a way that it is a metaphor for climate change and climate disaster, which is what
Mhm.
A Song of Ice and Fire actually is. Like we talk a big game about how like breaking fantasy tropes and like killing off main characters and stuff. And I'm like, y'all, there's an existential weather seasonal based threat that is going to destroy the world because everybody is squabbling over who gets to be king. Like,
There is a little bit of a downside though, and I'll give you one example.
yeah, yeah,
It
yeah, I hear
normal
you.
it normally never happens, but I was prepping to do an Invisible Sun campaign a few years ago,
Hmm.
and I was stealing ideas from Sandman and American Gods, and then
Oh,
all the stuff with Neil Gaiman came out, I'm like, "Oh my god. I'm kind of disgusted by this. I don't think I can do this." And I had to set aside a campaign that I've never come back to
mm,
because it just ruined me for a while on it. And I'm starting to think about
Yeah.
it again and come back to new ideas, but
mm.
it can happen and like you
Well,
can immerse yourself pretty deeply
we're
and then
talking.
find out,
Well,
"Oh my god, I can't do that now."
we're talking
It's
about
just gross.
references, and the thing about it is Tanith Lee, who wrote really famous fantasy author, um, British. She wrote Tales from the Flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
Which is where the idea for the endless comes from. And at no point did that author that we were talking about credit Tanith Lee's work with coming up with the concept of the endless and various things. And that author has had decades. And I would say, um, to kind of prove the point of what we're talking about, right? Like even everyone is a kind of pulled. I would say just go back to Tales of the Dying Earth. Go to
Yeah.
Tales of the Dying Earth. Go to
Yeah, I
by
have some other
Tanith
things
Lee.
going in my head. Like
Yeah,
I
you know what?
I started I found my way back to it. I'm thinking about running it next year. So, but I did need to get out of it. Like sometimes you
Yeah.
have to get your head away from something you were really into. And I
Hmm.
felt bad because there were people who were like dying to play it, and you know,
Just like
like I got to set that aside. But
Well,
I don't
next.
want to do that.
Yeah, speaking of,
Yeah, next
yeah, as we,
question. What do you got?
setting aside the
Wait, there's still
question,
questions.
right? I know, yeah, we still have questions. I'm just gonna let you go. This is what the panel is now. I'm gonna ask a question. You're gonna talk for 30 minutes, and then we've
Yeah.
got about an hour left of that.
All right.
So I want to
Yeah.
move us into, as we've talked about. Okay, this is like a lot of setup stuff, right? Like I
Mhm.
laid out. We're sticking to my format, right? Like this is starting the campaign. Getting your in, right? You're in your inspiration, the thing that you're pulling from, keeping track of it, right? Having some kind of like campaign manager so you can track all of your information. When you're in the campaign, right? Like you're in it, you're getting into the middle of it. How do you manage, the pacing of it, right? How do you manage kind of keeping things well paced, especially perhaps for games like, since a lot of us are we're all in the actual play space, right? And we're talking like, Scott, you're talking about like mini campaigns or campaigns where you might like know that you're working towards an end and you need to get to that end by a specific time, or to avoid the thing of like, oh no, we've started this campaign and we've run it for years and we're like losing it and we might not ever get to that end. How do you manage the pacing to kind of keep things on track so it can move, so you can get that kind of nice beginning, middle, end that we talked about at the beginning?
So one of the things that I do, especially in actual play, specifically more in actual play, is the fact that like aware of the fact that we are playing a tabletop game together, but we are also kind of like performing, right? Like this is a show that we're all on. So I like to be very upfront with my players when I'm like, hey, okay, cool. We have another 3 sessions left. And we have like I'm having a great time role playing and everything with you all, but we do kind of have to get to this end. So like I'm gonna peel the curtain back a little bit and let you all know that like, hey, these are some of the like here's a plot point I'm trying to move us to that gets us closer to the end, or to be like, hey guys, we have 2 sessions left and we still have our big fight at the end of it. So I'm going to like, we're going to speed up just like a little bit here to get to where we need to go. And then from there, just kind of let it play out, see how they interact with things. We might not even get to the big thing I thought was going to happen, but making sure that everyone is aware of the clock helps us all move towards a conclusion in a reasonable way.
Mhm.
Mhm.
One concrete advice I can give, piece of advice I can give, and this will help uh, with actual play and for campaigns that feel like they're losing their legs. Don't be precious about your mysteries.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
let them be solved and be ready to jump onto the next beat. I've had some experiences where I have been in, a lot of my experience, like I said, is in LARP, and I've played in like multi. I remember I joined the storytelling staff of a massive LARP that had a lot of players who were really frustrated because they had been chasing this plot for like a year and a half, and they kept just barrier after barrier after barrier. And then I found out the reason why is because the storyteller in charge of that plot was trying to extend it out to not ruin the mystery.
Yeah, that's rough.
And and
Mm.
and don't
Players feel when you manipulate them that way. They
yeah,
know.
Yeah.
yeah, they know, especially ones who like know the rules very well and have to like try to use every mechanic in the game they possibly can to investigate this thing. Um, just that is great when you are in phase one of your campaign. When you are in the first months, don't do that a year in. Like let the things resolve, because once you start having your players like resolve your big plots, then you have the space to build that momentum and ramp up the clock and get to that ending, because you're knocking aside all of the things and make sure like as they resolve those plots to give them the hook that leads them to the ending, that leads them to the end point, that leads them to the final boss. um
Mhm.
there is a really excellent piece of advice that Brennan Lee Mulligan gave. Uh, they had like a big shocking reveal that happened, I think, the second or third episode of this latest campaign of Critical Role, involving a character's backstory.
Mm.
And people were like, wow, why did you reveal this big thing? And Brennan said, because the th- the thing not being discovered isn't the plot. The plot is the
Mhm.
fallout from when the thing is revealed. That
Yeah.
is what, and when you are dealing with a limited amount of time in an actual play framing, um, get to the thing,
Mm.
Mhm.
get to the
Now,
thing, solve the
Yeah.
mystery, reveal the big thing, and let your players react.
Mm.
And it keeps things fresh and it keeps things from stagnating. Does that make sense?
as
No,
yeah,
absolutely. I was gonna
as,
say before I was a GM, an actual play person, or a tabletop role player, I was an improv actor. Like I've been improv acting since I was like 5. Does it mean I'm the best improv actor ever? No, but it means
there
I've
is
been
no
doing this
best,
for a while.
by the
There's
way.
no best.
There's
No.
no best.
But there's 2 rules that I always keep in mind when I'm like live running anything, whether that is a home game, whether that is a streamed game. Stream game, there's a little bit more nuance that goes on to that, because you have to pay attention to your time block, your number of episodes, your
Mhm.
this, that. Your home game, you have more wiggle room to like, hey guys, let's just continue to play this until we're all tired and bored of it, or like until we can meet the next time we can meet, right? But there's 2 rules you should always keep in mind for anything when you're running a game. One is yes and. When your players do anything, your answer should never be no,
Without a but.
without a but. If
Mm.
if you're gonna say no but, and then give them another flow direction to go in. But for myself, it's always yes and. So if my player goes like, yeah, this guy, this butchery guy is the murderer who's been doing all the things. And I'm like, I don't even know who that guy is, but yes, and he's also responsible for this other stuff. Go get him. And the other rule is KISS, and that's K.I.S.S, which is keep it simple, stupid. No matter how convoluted and mysterious you are trying to be, the best way to tell a story is the straightest way, the most interrupted. Was it Occam's razor? Is that it?
Occam.
Oh,
The
Occam's razor,
best
yeah.
way to get
Occam's razor.
Occam's razor to get best way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. So yeah, like even in Call of Cthulhu or those games that are like really like go investigate and find out the things. Sure, have your red herrings, have your dressings, but the best way to tell any given story for anything is to be able to yes and your players, and then keep it simple, stupid. If you put 5 million plot leads in front of your players and they choose one of them and it's not the one that you were expecting, tough luck. That's the plot point now. That's the story now. Keep it simple, stupid, and yes and and so like, yeah, sure, have your red herrings, have your this, have your that, but there's that straight line of narrative that you should always have available, and all your branching hooks and lines can always lead back some way somehow. And it's not railroading, because your players are making their choices, making the directions, but the goal is to beam your intention through narrative to your players that then beam that goal of narrative back to you, and you mind meld.
One thing that, I mean, the question was pacing was part of it. And I do have a couple of tools that I use for pacing. And I have, when I'm prepping between sessions, when I listen back or even early, in pre-prep before the game starts, I write out what I call quiet moments and danger points. And these are scene options that are sitting there when I need to pull it back and let it slow down and give space to the characters for deep emotional role playing or flashback scenes, dream sequences, those kinds of things. Because, by the way, I love those things. I love dream sequences and flashbacks, and I want players to not experience them. I want them to live them. So when I do a flashback, they're role playing through the flashback, not seeing it as a video.
Mm-hmm.
I just go in knowing I can't kill them, and there's certain rules. You have guardrails around these things.
Mm-hmm.
Or in a dream sequence, of course I can kill them. In fact, I can kill them multiple times. But so I use those, and then my danger points are the things that they've touched on, these touch points that are potentially on the edge of them opening a door ready for them, that I can pull out when I need to accelerate and speed up the pace. And I do them for every session. I don't hit them all. In fact, I know they're there as my in cases. So I would say it's not railroading either, but you should think about pacing, especially for an actual play. And then another thing is you can plan things with your players. So once I did a campaign and I wanted it to start with a bang in a way that would make them go, oh my God. So I planned to kill the player the first session. But I didn't kill them outright. I did it. I mean, they did die. But the idea was we built two characters, a second one secretly, knowing that first one, and it terrified the players from then on. And it was a horror game. I wanted it to feel like this is going to scare the shit out of them. And no one else knew, had to be private, had to be secret. But you can also make your players co-conspirators in your machinations, and they will love it, and they'll have so much fun with it.
Yeah,
Players love being co-conspirators.
They really
Players
do.
love spitting on a secret.
Yeah. So you mentioned the secret thing, and this is another tool that can help with pacing. Have everybody have a secret that only the GM knows. That's another thing. As a way of, we were talking about managing the plot and like getting it moving. if you as the GM have a relationship with each one of your players where you are sharing a secret about your character, that is a plot that you can just kind of pull in to like inject adrenaline into the game.
Yeah.
This especially works good for horror. Also, another thing that I think that would help with pacing when you're in the middle, to preface the question. I know this is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but I just want to make sure people know there's a variety of ways to handle this. A good bottle episode, a good dense bottle episode that takes the characters outside of their comfort zone, um, can also shake things up. I ran a change of the dreaming campaign, long term campaign, 6 years, and one of the things that I did to kind of shake things up, I think in year 2, was I had all the characters thrust into a situation where they were in a parallel dimension where they were all their characters all became film noir stereotypes, and we
Oh.
had a high costume bottle episode session where they essentially had to role play as their characters through a black and white film noir trope laden plot to be able to like escape and accomplish an important goal in the game. And it was one of the best sessions we ever did because they were all like thinking like, oh, how did we get in here? How do we get out of here? Wait a minute, hold on. Film noir tropes. Okay. Yes, I'm the red spy. I'm the soldier that just came back from the war. I'm the young ingenue that screams every single time something happens. And a solid bottle episode that has like a dense plot treat uh
Mhm.
can also like get your pacing going because it's like having your cake and eating it too. Like you're
Yeah.
way off track, but it's not off track. It loops back, like Neon says, to like the main
Mhm.
plot. Because by the end of that episode, they had essentially unlocked a place of power, which could then be used as like resources for like the rest of the campaign.
There was also something two things I wanted to pop on. One of the things that you said a little while back, Hector, actually, where you were talking about the LARP experience you had
Mm-hmm.
with people like artificially extending the mystery.
Yep.
One of the uh, so and like the gamble you run on a mystery, right, is that your players are going to figure it out early. But
Mm-hmm.
for working in a good mystery, a player being able to figure it out early is the reward that player earns, right? And so it falls
Yep.
back onto the thing you were talking about with Brendan Lee Mulligan, is that them figuring the thing out isn't the key part of the story. It's the
Mm-hmm.
fallout from having figured it out. And
Mm-hmm.
so in a
Mhm.
very like in keeping track of your pacing, kind of like relating back to the question, instead of working on artificially expanding the lead up to the big reveal, when your players figure out that reveal, reward them for it by giving them a bigger task to handle now that they have this information. Like, you're not extending what they have to do before they get there. You're now changing the win conditions for what they can do now that they have this information. And that can take equally as long of a time, however, still be rewarding.
Yeah.
However, something that you talked about, Zeal, that I want to touch on also was you talked about like giving your players dreams and things to like work inside of and to work around. That
Yeah.
kind of fits into, especially as I get into more like psychological or like existential stories, where I will find ways to build what's the right way to say, I find ways to build interest or to build like I can't think of the word right now, but like need, right? Like I'm putting characters' needs, I'm giving them more needs to finish this inside of the
Mm-hmm.
story, and that basically comes into the way that they deal with the paranormal, or the unknowable or things like that. I remember at one point I was playing Master Narlethatap, and we're in
Oh.
Peru, and I sometimes like I like unsettling my players in multitudes of different ways. Sometimes it's just having them roll dice and then see what happens, like for
Mm-hmm.
nothing in particularly load bearing, and see if they have a reaction. One of my players, I had them roll a wisdom save at the end of a small encounter as they're dealing with the Carcery, these fat sucking vampires, and they fumbled, and they're just like, oh no, what's gonna happen? And like I wasn't even really planning on doing too much, but like they just like really kept freaking out about like the what the results of this fumble was going to be. And so um I gave them a tiny little vision of, because they were already going to have to fight. They're already going to have to head to the supernatural temple in the middle of the desert anyway, right? So I just gave them a little bit of like a little bit of plot information, but I gave it to them in a threatening and terrifying way. They got a vision
Perfect.
of the god who is threatening to escape from his seal, and like what the world looks like from outside of their perspective, from a being from like a higher like perspective. And then when they came back, they had a tiny little black spot on their hand, and no matter where they looked, they always saw eyes. When the clouds parted, it looked like two stars breaking through the through like holes in the cloud, like eyes were staring at them. There was grain in the wood that looked like eyes carved into the knots. No, like the light shone directly through the window, and the moonlight coming through the trees looked like eyes staring at them. They always felt like they were being observed, and they wanted to get to the end of this mystery faster because they never felt safe.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's exactly the, like, if your players are not finding the plot, if pacing is slow, things like that, have the plot find them.
Yes.
Yep.
If
See, now-
they're trying
yeah.
to stop like a mad god from escaping, have the mad god find them. If
Mhm.
Right.
they're, you know, like hunting, like usually most stories, most narratives you'll realize are the players are looking for something, hunting something, going after something, trying to find something. It's a chase. Fundamentally, every game is a chase.
All right.
There-
Flip it on them.
Okay.
If things are going
What's-
slow, have the
Oh,
thing
Quinn
find
wants
them.
to stop this.
What's
Quinn has another thing.
What's next, moderator? What's our next question?
Yeah,
I'm
please.
I keep
excited.
forgetting there's a moderator.
No, we're just
We
I
don't need a
haven't.
moderator. Quinn, just check off. Leave us here. No.
Yeah, leave us
As
alone.
we're, as we're talking about pacing, right, I want to make sure, because I also want to jump in for our audience to remind folks, for one, that you can throw questions into the chat. I know we have some people in the chat who are talking. If anyone
Yeah.
has any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. We will take audience questions if we have them. I
Yeah.
also just
Hey.
added our donation and our giveaway links into the chat.
Yay.
And so, yeah, I'm thank you for that, chatters. I'm so aware. And as people throw their questions in the chat, if you have any, to move us into that ending question, right? Okay, we've got
Ooh.
your pacing, your plot
we have
points,
an
they're
end?
finding you, wrapping up a campaign, right? That mysterious thing that sometimes doesn't happen, right? When we look at wrapping up a campaign, you know, how do you you know, especially potentially for a home game where you didn't have like a set time in mind. It's not like we must be wrapped up by this session. How do you know when it's time to kind of move into, again, I keep referencing to, like, Scott, you said it so well, right? That like beginning, middle, end framework. When you're moving into the end,
Yep.
how do you know what shifts for you as the GM? What might you do differently in kind of like end zone play? And how do you make sure that you get that like wrap up, that ending, that conclusion, right? We joked about it a little bit at the beginning that a lot of long form campaigns, you know, we all have our stories of long term campaigns we're really into and really invested in, and then they just vanished and you never got like a satisfying ending or a conclusion. So, how do you do that? How do you kind of bring together, especially in a story where maybe you've had like A plots, B plots, C plots, D plots, to bring it all together in a way that feels satisfying and you know, concluding solidly for people?
Ooh.
That's me
this-
combining like three of my end
this-
questions into one for
this
our
is-
end here. Yeah.
This is a hard one because and even with 30 years of experience, landing the plane on a long-term campaign has still been something that is rare. You would think it would be more common if you have more time, but it is in fact not. My 6-year Changeling the Dreaming LARP ended on a quiet note. Essentially, I got burned out, I got tired, I wanted to do other things, so I just ran a short story contest. I told people, hey, write me a really cool short story. Here are the parameters for how the game is going to end, and there you go. And that's how like I ended that. And then like other campaigns have just kind of sort of been like, sometimes they end because of like out of character drama. between players. Uh, but positive note, handful of times I have landed the plane. As I mentioned, short story contest was one for a 6-year LARP. Just kind of handing the ending of the plot back to your players. It's something really good that you can do if you really, really care but are very burnt out. Another thing that I did to land the plane was I ran like a reverse West Marches, where like I had like 40 players rotating in and out of the plot. And what I did to for like the season finale, the ending of like the one arc, was I had like a big game. I had like a really big game. We had a big party with food and drinks, and everybody came over. And some people were in multiple different rooms, and we had like 14 players. Uh,
Oof.
and we ran like this big, huge, epic combat. Going up against the really big bad, and I gave people lots of opportunity to role play and spend time together socially. Um, and that is how I landed the plane on that one. I just kind of took all the plot threads and I let the players just do the big over the top thing.
Mhm.
Um, and it was really satisfying, to be able to just like get everybody together and do that. In actual play, because I do like shorter series, um, I do one of two things when it comes to landing the plane, and I will use my Candela series as an example. I ended the first season with everyone going their separate ways, everyone having their own like denouement because I did not succeed in killing them. I tried, trust me, I did, and they wanted to die, um, but I did sort of like a narrative death where everyone like kind of went to the four corners of the world and went off and did their own thing, um, having lost so much. And then I brought them back all together for the second season, and then I did the opposite at the end of the second season. I left them in a place where their characters were reunited. They were ready to go, but there was no next case, if that makes sense. Like I left them in a sense where if we wanted to do a sequel or another series, we could. And those are my two major tips for how to land the plane. Make sure it's a big event, make sure it's meaningful, and either everybody is together and there's finality in that and being this found family and being this group, or everybody goes their separate ways and you give the players the spotlight to write their character's own ending. And in my opinion, that's how I think is the best way to end a long-term campaign. Like that is your spectrum, right? Those two things, and perhaps, a little bit of a spectrum in the middle, maybe a little mix, like maybe two characters were in love and end up running off and being together because they had this long romance that lasted the entirety of the campaign, and the way they want to end it is those characters. Like I said, you can tweak it, but ultimately it's either the protagonists are together and facing the end together, or the protagonists face the end and then go off on their own journeys. And that's how I like to land the plane.
I think one of the hardest things to do with getting to a satisfying conclusion is, like we're talking about beginning, middle, and end, is recognizing when you're past the middle, because that's when you need to start prepping your end. So when you're running, like when I'm running, you can, if you watch movies or TV shows, I think the perfect end to end I've seen is in Andor season 1, and the way that it ended, you could feel the middle end, which marks the beginning of the end. You know where you're going. Everyone's meeting in one place.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. You do need to have them together if you want to have a contained, controlled space so that it feels epic, or you need to separate them to make it feel depressing and they're going to be crushed by the weight of whatever's happening. Both can be powerful and leave scars. And by the way, in making art, you're going to scar players and yourself, because that's the point. You should be
Yeah.
you should be scarring each other in ways that you grow from it and you learn about each other and you become more human and feel more sympathy and empathy to each other, because that's the point of scars. They're to make us
Mhm.
better people.
You're so
So
philosophical about this. I didn't realize you
No,
were this
it's real.
philosophical.
I'm you know what? I agree. This is an art. I think this is one of the two great collaborative arts. There's filmmaking and there's actual, or not actual,
Yes.
tabletop
No,
RPGs.
play.
absolutely.
And if you don't think of it that way, you're probably treating it like the old school way, which was it's a board game meant for war. It's a war game.
Yeah.
If you're thinking of it that way, I mean, they're both valid in their own ways. I'm just not interested in that one. I'm interested in the one where it's improv actors with dice trying to make things that make each other cry or laugh or feel joy or feel terror,
Mhm.
whatever it happens to be. But recognizing the end of the middle means start prepping at that point. So I know, like if I'm running a 12 art campaign, I can feel when we get past the middle because they've accomplished the second biggest thing I think they could accomplish. At that point, start prepping for the end and make sure that you include, like that's when I go back and I reread all their backstories. I start looking for points that need to be brought back because they're important to the player and
Mhm.
will add to the value of the end, and then bring it to the end and start bringing back pain points that either are not resolved or should never get resolved, and let the end become what it becomes. And I always give them an epitaph. Let them, at the end of it, if they're alive, let them say what they are. Although I will also say, even if they're
dead,
not
that's
alive,
fun too.
yes, even if they're
Mhm.
dead, they can have an epitaph for what happens after. Which in my
I-
old gods campaign, one player was turned into a crow that then sat and watched over a graveyard
Hmm.
where all their family had died, and it was a
Mhm.
beautiful, it was dramatic in the quietest way, and it was beautiful. And I mean, how could you not love that?
I think building off of that too, when we start to talk about like tabletop as a fundamentally collaborative storytelling environment and engagement and project, the best way, and especially Baba Yaga, I've seen your question as well, the how do you manage player expectations for the final chapter and mitigate hurt feelings if a player's journey isn't what they expected. The way to do that is to understand that this is a collaborative storytelling environment and to give your players the reins to make that decision for how their story ends. Throughout the entire campaign, and this is something that I maybe should have mentioned at the start, but there's no better way to talk about the start than when we're looking at the end, because this is an Ouroboros of a project. There is no beginning without an end, and there's no end without a new beginning. Every character, whether you, the player, realize it or not, is struggling between at least 2 points. If we look at the Avatar Legends role playing system, so for all the lovely Avatar: Last Airbender, Legend of Korra, Avatar Kyoshi, that system, every class, every character is playing with this idea of balance, because that's always been the theme of Avatar's balance. And every player has a scale on their sheet between two different ideals, whether that's, restraint and freedom, or, control versus release, versus like every player, every character you ever make, every character your players ever make are going to be balancing between at least 2 points, if not more. As you are playing your game, those players will shift back and forth on that scale. Sometimes that scale will change entirely as they develop over time. What matters at the end is you give your players the opportunity and chance to decide where on that scale they end and what's going to be good for them to resolve, right? And whether that's, yeah, I have learned my lesson of like stepping out of the control of whatever my backstory is, and now I step into the world going forward after this as a free person after freeing the world from tyranny, and I share that freedom with people. And that's the end for that character, because that feels narratively important given everything that's happened to this point. When you're preparing for the end, look over everything that has been done and find the through point. Find what was this campaign about? because all art, and this is art, is political. You might not have meant it, you might not have thought about it when you were making it, but at the end of the day, there is no TTRPG that I have not gone back and looked over that I have run where I haven't been able to go, oh yeah, no, I was struggling with this concept at the time. Or Shattered Future is about a number of things, and it's a horror game where we get to talk about traumas that we have experienced in a way that is healthy, that is creative, that is meant to really air out that pain and that injury and that trauma in a way that we can control, in a way that we can dismantle, in a way that we can approach. And so, like, yeah, Shattered Future has themes around Christian colonialism. It has themes around the cycles of trauma. It has themes around like exploitation of marginalized peoples and cultures. And it has like it's a very social and political piece of art that I am making with a bunch of really cool people that we are collaboratively telling this story. Now, I don't know what the end is going to look like because that's for every single player from here to the end of that series to decide and make along with me. But I know when we get there, there is no shying away from what the game is about. Find the core of what your players are about, find the core of what your game is about, and make them kiss. Make them kiss. So, if that character is about freedom and the story is about, the horrors of cycles of trauma, at the end, give them the scene to express their freedom and break a cycle of trauma at the same time. But the way to mitigate a player feeling bad about their ending is to just ask them what they want. Talk to your players. It's not a like, oh, I have to have everything all I have to mind read all 6 people sitting at my table and find out. No, ask them. Ask them. And the thing is, sometimes you don't even need to ask them. Just go over their character and their character will tell you.
Yep.
You just have to know how to listen. And that's a skill that you will pick up as you do this more and more.
I found
And
when
to
you read
kind
the
of like-
backstory, they're telling you how they want to end anyway in the backstories.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. If you want to know how to end, look at the beginning. Like
Yep.
some
And
people
I-
go that way, some people go that way.
Yeah.
kind of like touch on like a combination of everyone's points, right? I, in a very literature nerd, but also like shonen anime enjoyer kind of mentality. One of the key things I like, one of the key things I like in a lot of media, but you see a lot in shonen, is the fact that whatever story you're running into is very frequently the antagonist has a thesis and the main character is the antithesis, the antithesis, and they have to continue to butt heads against each other until you reach what is either the correct idea or the two ideas kind of merge. There's an overly sarcastic productions video that talks a lot about this, to where you can have multiple factions that all have the same idea, who all have different thoughts on the same idea. And what happens as your characters continue to butt heads with them is that you expose the flaws in other people's mindsets, so that way you can come together to what you as the storyteller are presenting as the correct ideal. And so while you're running into stories like this with your characters, your players are going to have their own ideas of how the world should be, what is right, what isn't right, and your villain is typically going to have the opposite idea. So like once they've settled into this guy sucks and he sucks for these reasons right here, and you have the tools to do something about it, this is now the time period to where you're like getting ready for your end. But also on the same note to something that Scott said, that with the like your characters being scarred or whatever, the idea of like the hero's narrative, that the hero returns back from their journey changed from the journey itself.
Mm-hmm.
The ending of that fight, the ending of whatever you do, is going to be that you're not going to get away from it unscathed. There's something you're probably going to have to give of yourself in order to get there. And so it's, you're setting up the scenes for your players. You're being very on board about what's going on. And then you give them a big moment for them to decide what this ending is worth for them. Like, if you want to get here, there's probably something you're going to have to give up in return. Is seeing the end of this worth what you're about to lose?
Okay. I love all this, and I love thank you, Neon, for bringing in the question from the chat. Does anyone have anything else specifically to address that question from Baba Yaga about like managing potential player hurt and like player expectations around endings?
There.
I have one specific thing. Do not change your player's backstory because you think you have a more interesting idea about the truth behind what's really going on with their character.
Mhm.
Don't do that. I know that seems like a very like definitive, and we've been very loosey goosey with that. But I've had a couple of experiences where GMs, not me, but GMs who thought they knew better and felt that they were better designers and more creative and perhaps smarter than their players, have completely changed what the backstory was to fit a different narrative and to fit the plot, and like legitimately thought, isn't this like such an interesting like way? um and when I told my fellow player, hey, you should tell them that you didn't like that your backstory was changed, uh and the friend was like, yeah, no, everybody really likes them and they're really popular, and I, don't want to rock the boat, so I'm just going to let this happen. And I was just like, what what like,
Yeah.
so
Mm.
just don't just build off of what they've already written you,
That
but don't rewrite it.
build
If
off
you want to
of, don't
read,
recreate.
yeah, if you want to do something in between the lines, talk to the player.
Yes.
They'll tell you whether it's
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Talk
They
to them.
will.
Mhm.
Like, just and
You
and
can have
and
session 0 in between any session with a player
yes,
one-on-one or
exactly.
whatever.
Absolutely.
Do it whenever you want,
Yeah.
because I can
Yeah.
tell you, every player's like excited to get alone time with the GM to talk about their player.
Mhm.
What is better than that?
Yeah.
Mm.
So I just want to addressing Baba Yaga's question. I wanted to say it earlier, but especially if you want to land the plane and give that player the best possible ending, don't do
Talk to
that.
them. Mhm.
You know.
There was like on that same note, especially something that Zeal said too, it really just kind of is open communication. One of the really good things that happened in a game that the three of us were in, Neon and Quinn, was in Last Kiss. Between every session, we had a section, effectively like a tiny little session 0. Like we had a like, what are we
Nice.
most looking forward to inside of this game? How are we all feeling? Like a very the checkup and the communication on a regular basis also kind of helps you as a GM see where you might need to pivot in the story. We had effectively was the palette grid where we were talking about things we were into, things we weren't into. We had effectively the wishes from Stars and Wishes of like where we like to see our characters move forward. And every single time we talked about that, Brian was able to get more information about what we want to do and like where we're looking for endings for each of these characters ending up, and was able to balance those really well over towards the ending of the show. So open communication about all these things is going to be the easiest way to help mitigate any hurt about where endings are heading towards.
Stars and wishes are a magic tool for the GM. First off, stars are mostly for the players, but wishes are mostly for the GM. So,
yeah.
take the wishes to heart and
Mhm.
cheer out the stars that are thrown out. You support you. You want to be both supportive, and you want to understand what's going on in their head. Stars and wishes does that.
Yeah.
Stars
If
is
you
cheer,
yeah. If you
and
want to be like
wishes tell you.
ahead of the game, I write everyone's wishes down in a document. And then in between and before the next session, I use the wishes in addition to my notes um, as plot points. I'm like, this is where the plot is going this session. And then that's the wishes are my framework. And I promise you, if you use the wishes as your base framework with all of your other prep, your table's going to be satisfied.
Solid.
In fact, some of them will be surprised. They will be like, why was this so good? I was like, you told me. Like
You told me what you
you
wanted.
told me what you
Mhm.
wanted. Like some people
Order
will
up.
don't expect that. Like some people
Mhm.
just sort of expect that they're just gonna get narrated at and they'll have emergent fun through whatever plot is thrown at them. Um, but they will appreciate it. They really,
Mhm.
really will if you use as the wishes
Yeah.
as your point.
Tying back to like tools that we use for campaign planning and such. Um, Discord is, I think, was mentioned. Crimson, you mentioned you have like a Discord just for your like notes and everything to keep everything organized. I have a Discord for my Daggerheart home game, and not only are there channels for general chat about the game, memes about the game, jokes about the game, but I have a forums set up for session notes where players can
Mhm,
share their session notes or I can share session notes,
mhm,
which helps keep everyone engaged. Also, player notes are a golden and valuable tool. If you can ever get
Mhm.
your hands on your players' notes, do so because
God.
you may say something and have an intent for something that you have said, but like we have gone over multiple times and have stated multiple times, this is art and art is subjective. So your players will all have, if you have 6 players, you're going to have 6 different interpretations of the art that you put out there.
Oh,
Um,
uh,
but
n- uh, nothing is worse than when I set out to do what I thought was a utopian fantasy, and then my
Mhm.
players like took me aside and were like, "My gosh, this whole like political satire you're running, where the elves think that they're like fair and benign, but they're really not, and there's all these dark like
Yeah,
undercore going on," and I'm just all like, "Oh no!" Like
yeah,
I
because
made a dystopia by accident.
I made a dystopia by accident, but like Neon is right. Like what you're putting out is not necessarily what your players are
Are perceiving.
receiving.
picking up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it when you get access to your players' notes and your players' insight about how the game is going,
Yeah. It's
you
the
might end
best.
up realizing you're
it's
running a completely different campaign that you
it's
planned,
cash money.
and
It's
that's
free
fine.
storytelling. It's
Right.
it's so good, and that's why I have that form in my Discord so that like if people want to put their notes there, they can, and it allows the party to all collectively be on the same page about things. It also lets me know what they're thinking. But on top of that, each player has a private DM chat that they can message me about anything at any time about their players, about their characters, about like other players and everything else. And that is also a phenomenal way to find out what's going on. There's a number of, we're like 3, 4 sessions in at this point. There's been a number of times where I've just reached out to a player and gone, hey, what do you think about like this thing? What do you think about that thing? What do you think about, this town where you grew up?
Oh,
You left this thing kind of blank and ambiguous. Let's dive into that. Um,
Baba Yaga's making me cry. I was laughing so hard at the last comment.
Yeah, no, legit. That's funny of you. Exactly. Read your players' notes. But like having that open communication is so key for any collaborative thing. If you've ever worked in, an office team environment, having communication with your team is key to getting anything done. Your TTRPG table is your team. You might
Mhm.
be the manager in this analogy, but they are fundamentally your team. Talk to them, discuss with them, work with them, collaborate with them. And sometimes it takes you to weird story and like world building things that you never would have thought of. For instance, I messaged a player of mine and I was like, "Hey, we're gonna start next session with a little backstory on your end of you as a kid. Here's what I'm thinking. Uh, what do you think is like a sport that as a kid you would have played? Because like let's get into that." And it's world building and it makes the world feel alive. It makes their culture feel alive. And I think once again, I guess we've all mentioned Brendan Lee Mulligan at this point, or at least most of us. Something in an interview, I can't remember what it was. I think it might have been like a Dimension 20 interview or what have you, where Brendan was talking about his philosophy professors at university and
Mm,
how blessed he was to have this philosophy professor that presented these ideas as, you know, this is an actual real thing that real people believed in and used and it built a part of their structure and how they conceptualize the world around them. Bring that mindset to your fictional narratives. When your players go, oh yeah, like I'm this way because of this thing, go, okay, that is a real thing that really exists, and for whatever reason is part of that player's backstory's culture. So like, yeah, I have my players playing something called a Fey Spawn, which is a half-breed fairy and ribbit in Daggerheart. And they're a little like glass frog inspired subterranean fairy frog. They're like a foot tall, and they come from this underground secluded like city. And it's rad, and I love it. And I was like, yeah, like let's talk about what a sport from that society would look like. And so we created collectively this sport called Geyser Ball that is inspired by Road to El Dorado, the sport game that they play in Road to El Dorado. I know it's an actual real Mesopotamian sport. I can't remember the name of it right now because there's 5 million things going on. But like it's based on that, and like all the people in that culture have some sorceress capacity to control water. So Geyser Ball, you can hit the ball with your hips, your legs. You can't use your hands, but you can also use water to manipulate yourself in the ball, but you can't use it to outright attack other people. And it starts to build this culture, because you start to go, oh yeah, this is the sport. Oh yeah, this is what's normal. Everyone in this culture can do this thing. Everyone believes these things. Everyone engages in communion this way. And now that city isn't just, the cardboard tapestry of I came from here, but an actual real breathing place of I came from here and I'd like to go back someday, or I want to learn something about this place and change it as I realize XYZ. And that, it's part of the beginning, it's part of the middle, it's part of the end. And that's why like inquisitive mind is the best tool for you to have as a GM. Ask why until there's no more why left.
Yeah.
Smart people make smart people, just like hurt people. So if you're going to be smart, your players will get smarter along with you, and you'll learn, and you'll get smarter from your players.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to add one thing before. That goes back to what Baba Yaga had asked about the end of games. Not every player or character or player is going to have an equally perfect end to the game, and that's totally okay. You don't, as a GM, you're creating a world where with them that ends the way it ends. And not everybody in every movie or book or game ends with equal validity or equal, I don't want validity is not the right word, with equal impact or epicness. They're just going to end differently. And that's totally okay. You don't have to say this one's not as good. It's not about that, because it's all equally good. It's just not necessarily as impactful or epic. Because you're at the end anyway. Yeah. Let it end and be a soft end for some, a hard end for others, whatever it's going to be. You just got to be satisfied. When you finish the book and you write and you turn it into the authors and it's been edited, you can't change it anymore. It's printed.
Yeah.
It's
obviously
just I want to tie a bow on that because there's something else. Please. It's really quick. Yeah. Like Zeal said, not everything is going to be like perfectly ended all the time. That also means that like not every character that starts the campaign has to finish the campaign.
Right.
Yeah.
Some characters have natural endpoints in, the late beginning, in the middle, in the early end. It's okay. Let them have that. But when we start to talk about endings, another quote comes to mind from another phenomenal GM. I mentioned, I think, My Brother and Me before we came live, so I have to talk about the Adventure Zone. And a quote that I always keep in mind when I'm running and like preparing to the ends of my campaigns or big emotional moments is in the first season of Adventure Zone, Griffin McElroy said something like, when somebody leaves your life, those exits are not made equal. Some are beautiful and poetic and satisfying. Others are abrupt and unfair, but most are just unremarkable, unintentional, clumsy. And I think that is something to keep in mind when you are ending anything, is that there's always all this pressure to have it be this big explosion, satisfying end. But really, in our lives, in our real human lives, we go through exits and ends every day. And some of them feel so good. Some of them destroy us. And some of them we don't even realize. And so when we're telling a story with our players and it comes to the end, yes, some of those characters are going to be in the perfect position to have that tear-jerking emotional ending that feels so good. Some of them are going to have that ending that just feels so abrupt and bad and heartbreaking. And some of them are just going to end. And that's okay. Lean into that. Let that be. Because art is
All right.
part of us.
All right, Quinn, we're going to give you the
please.
mic back.
All right.
Here you go, Quinn.
Yep.
Here you go,
Well,
Quinn.
I mean, that was a perfect way to kind of wrap up that conversation about endings. And actually, obviously, I'm just here to moderate as a panelist, but I'm even thinking too as you're talking, about the difference between the character ending and the player ending, right? Like Scott, with you here, thinking about that Magnus campaign, my character end for that campaign, my character was so mad. My character was so mad. My character hated how that game ended, and I loved it as the player, right? Like your character can have
Awesome.
an awful end, and your player can have a fantastic end. Like those can be two very different experiences, and having a awful ending for your character can be like the thing that you've been working towards sometimes in like again a horror campaign or a game where everybody dies, right? Like Neon and Crimson we were just referencing earlier, that last kiss, like that is a game where written in the rules of the game, like 10 candles and things like that, like you're gonna die at the end. You go into it knowing you're gonna die at the end, and it is the story that you tell along the way and the art that you make and the emotions that you get out of that that make it like, yep, this is a story that we're gonna tell together and have a great time telling. So with that, as we've gone on our journey from beginning, middle to end, we're gonna end kind of at the beginning, like what you were saying, Neon, with a question that I think is gonna be the hardest question I've asked you guys this entire time.
Oh,
because
okay.
what I'm gonna ask is, imagining you have someone, we're gonna say it's me, even though I have run campaigns before, but in imaginary fantasy world, I've never run a campaign before, right? I have like, some TTRPG experience, but never run a campaign. And I come to you, and I come to each one of you asking like, hey, I'm getting ready to run a campaign. I don't want to be overwhelmed by advice, right? What is one thing, the one piece of information that you would first want to give? Again, you might have, a lot of information you could give someone getting ready to run a campaign. But what's like the one thing, if you only had a chance to say one, that you would want to say to someone getting ready to run a campaign for the very first time?
Know the rules.
Know the rules
I
is
would
a
act-
very good one.
I would actually go a different direction. I would say run a rules light game so you don't have to memorize so many rules and you can pay attention to the players mostly.
Justify, justify, justify. Ask why, and always give a reason. That's it. You can know the rules, you can not know the rules.
Yeah.
What matters is that you sit, you listen, and when you speak, you are speaking with intention and meaning. That's it. Everything else comes later.
You know what? Actually, kind of close to similar to what Neon said. One of the things I say all the time about tabletop is that there is no wrong way to play or to do tabletop as long as you are invested. All of tabletop is just a conversation you are having with X amount of people at the same table. And if you can have a conversation like in a non-condescending way, if you can have a conversation like a regular person to where you're making sure that everyone has space to speak, that everyone feels valued, and you're also advancing the points that you are bringing up in this conversation, then you can perform any aspect of tabletop, be that a player or a GM. So just don't put any more work, don't put any more stress into it than you would put stress into having a conversation.
Around those rules things, I'm going to come back to that for a moment because I have thoughts there that are interesting. First off, D&D is so many damn rules. Nobody just starting out knows all the rules. But what you should do is know the rules are coming up in the next session. I mean, obviously you need to know the basics and understand those. But if you're going to do a survival session in the Arctic tundra of someplace, know the rules around that and prep rules like you would prep narrative or or ideas, learn the rules for that week. And that's how you actually expand your knowledge of these big games anyway. Very few people could sit down and read D&D, any edition, and know all the rules in any reasonable amount of time. Most people, I don't even think, read whole books anymore. They go to, say, YouTube and watch videos on how to run games. And I think that's a totally valid way to learn rules and practice them, and then flip through the pages. Like I do that with games that I'm not sure about yet, just to get an idea before I decide I want to run it.
Zeal's the nice old man. I'm the mean old man. I'm like, no, read that book from cover to cover.
Yeah,
like,
just play
on the
just
rules.
play
On the rules topic, actually, know the rules. Don't know the rules. Prep your rules. Don't prep your rules. At the end of the day, don't be afraid to say, I don't know. Let me find out.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
And that is not just DM advice. That is life advice. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to go, I don't know. Give me a minute. And go find out. Like it's already been touched on. A lot of people don't read the books front to back, like page by page. I don't really either. I have not read a single, actually, no, I've read one TTRPG rule book front to back, and it was Thirsty Sword Lesbians. But that's because that rule book is phenomenal to read.
You could put it down.
Back.
Mm-hmm.
April Kit Walsh does a phenomenal job in that book, writing it and writing everything in such a way where it is easy to move through, fun to understand, and has meaning in every last word.
That is a whole. We got to have a whole nother panel about that. Neon.
Yeah, we can have a whole nother panel about that.
Writing rules better.
Because like the thing about my one piece of advice that I'm giving is that there is a lot of contingency around it. I am very old school in that way, but I truly, sincerely believe, even though you should shoot for the moon and land on the stars, I think April Kit Walsh and several other game designers, modern game designers, if you can write a book in a way that allows a new GM to be able to read it from cover to cover, that's a win for me. Like, and which is one of the reasons why I feel like, even though I've gone from a more trad style of running, I was able to just sort of flow into newer books. Because the advice that I give is a trial the further back in the decades you go, because of how thick and dense these books can be.
Ditto.
But as we're in the more modern era and we have more rules like books, or books that are written to be read,
rules friendly,
right? Or even books that are informationally designed, laid out better, like Emergent. Every page of Emergent is useful.
It's thick.
It is thick, but you can breeze through it. So
you can.
Like I said, I will stand my ground. And if I have to give one piece of advice, it's no. But I do have more.
Knowing the rules too prevents you, especially as a newer GM, from like the panic feeling you get when you don't know a rule, right? And that's like Neon's advice too, of like, you don't have to panic because you don't know something, especially if you're playing off of a big book like Emergent. You can watch me run Emergent, who was on the game design team, and go, hang on a minute, I gotta look that up. I don't remember
you can
that.
watch me run Emergent and then go, hey Quinn, how do I run that? And then Quinn in the chat answers.
Penny Arcade ran the most perfect sessions of Tales from the Loop I've ever seen. And I have a playlist that I keep, a private playlist of actual plays that I watch before I run a game that is the game I'm watching, so just to get like immersed in the concept again, that I think really fit what I love. And the way they did it, my God, it was just, it's shocking how good it is.
And reading the book from cover to cover is a very old school way of knowing the rules.
Yeah.
Watching a YouTube, playing in a lot of games so that you kinesthetically like learn the rules, right?
We're forever GMs. We don't do that anymore.
Right.
We don't have any time.
You don't have any time for that. I'm just ultimately saying, however you can absorb what you want to build your long-term campaign for. Learn them. learn them however you can, whether that's through
Yeah.
doing, whether that's through watching videos, or whether that's through like I do as an old man and read that book from cover to cover. There are, as we used to say, more than one way to skin a cat.
Okay. Before we do our outros, we do have one last question in the chat that I think is a really good one to end
Okay.
on. Because it is, you have to pick only one TTRPG to play for a year. What are you playing? Title only, no justifications allowed.
Kids on Brooms.
For me, it's Old Gods of Appalachia. I'm still in love with that one.
Oh,
Nice.
Emergent.
yay.
Wander Home.
This is my game. I knew you'd say Wander. You cute motherfucker.
It's
Yeah, but-
it's what I'm doing.
You haven't
It's so good.
advanced to Yasma's Bed and Breakfast yet?
No, not yet. I'm sticking with Wander Home. It's my bed and bread and butter. And look, I live my truth.
It's beautiful.
Oh wait, no
Wonderful.
justification. Sorry,
No
Zip.
justification.
No justification.
No justifications. Wander Home.
Bobby August specifically said no justification.
Yeah, no, we're
Um,
just gonna leave with that.
Which works out great because we are coming to the end of our scheduled time anyways. Thank you everyone for being here. If folks were jumping in and didn't have time to catch the whole video, the video on demand will be on YouTube in the next couple of days. We did it. We here covered beginning, middle, and end. Your campaign doesn't. We managed to get through it, so you can do it. You
Well, we
just
kind of
have
had to.
interrupt
Mhm.
people a bunch and keep them, railroad your
And we-
panelists,
And
not
we
your
took
players.
notes during the session
Yes.
Did we?
because that's what GMs do.
I also took notes.
Oh,
So-
nice.
Thought really
Yeah,
hard about it.
We also do that.
We solved GMing, yes.
Yeah, we
Yes,
solved
we
GM.
did.
We've
We
got,
did.
this is how you GM. Just listen to
Easy.
this, and it's so easy now. We
You're
made
done.
it so easy
Yep.
and simple.
Mhm.
Step 1, listen. Step 2, communicate. Step 3, listen again.
Shut
I
up.
swear-
Silence is powerful. Learn to shut up.
Oh my god.
And so with that, with our final little bits of advice, we will wrap up for the day by having everyone go around and share your outros. So as we've been talking about running games, I know that everybody here has games that they run. I know a couple people here have campaigns that they're in the middle of, some of which have already been referenced. So we're gonna go around, share your name, where people can find you, and projects that you're in the middle of.
Okay. All right. Hi. As I said earlier, I'm Hector, aka Okami, or Keiichi Okami, all over the internet. You can find me on Blue Sky at keiichiokami.itch.io. And you can also find me at Keiichi Okami on Instagram. Campaigns I'm in the middle of. I'm currently the creative director of House of Dreams, which is an actual play creative collective that is run by BIPOC and LGBT and other marginalized folks. Right now, we are in the middle of A Season's Oath, which is my long-term Wander Home campaign. Last year, we did a full arc of the year, 16 episodes, plus a whole bunch of interlude one-shots that were little side stories to the main plot on other channels, such as, I've done one on Nerds with Dice, I've done one over at Pantsless Tables, and so we have a total of, oh god, we're over 20 episodes. I will say that we are at over 20 episodes.
Nice.
Right now, we are on episode 19 of the campaign. We are meeting noon Eastern on Saturdays is when we're running the campaign, and it's still growing. Like, keep an eye out. Quinn and Neon both have characters in it because it's like a big West Marches style. So I'm just, our interludes are open to everyone in the space. Our core campaign is all BIPOC. But it is one of the greatest long-term projects that I have ever had the privilege of being a part of. So please, all of the back episodes are on the House of Dreams YouTube channel. And we stream them live on Twitch, and we're always raising money for charity. This ARC campaign, we're raising money for Palestinian Children Relief Fund. So please come out, be a part of our story. If you are in the actual play space and you know me, and you are interested in one day being a part of it, keep an eye out. We have a couple of interludes that will be coming up over the spring and the summer on other channels to give you opportunities to join the expanded cast, of which we are now at 38.
Nice.
So yeah, really, really excited. And so I'm gonna kick this over to the next person on the overlay, which I believe is
Hi.
Neon.
It's me. Also, legitimately, if we're talking about world building and campaign writing, go watch Hector's Season's Oath and all the extended Wanderhome stuff. Because if you want to know how to run a player-driven narrative over a long time with a lot of players, no one does it better than Hector. I legitimately, hard on my sleeve, such a big fan of it. And it's such a good way to watch how a campaign that is fundamentally player narrative driven work over a long period of time. It's phenomenal. So please do go watch it. But hi everyone, my name is Neon. You can find me at It's Neon Graffiti anywhere on the internet. You can also find me by going into your backyard and whispering into plants that were once living but are now no longer. You can also find me at Logomancy Media. Just ask for me specifically, and they'll send me to the door like a mother that's kind of getting tired of her kid getting called on all the time. Just kidding. But yeah, you can find me at Logomancy Media. We are the Canadian streaming TTRPG channel, but we're not exclusively Canadian. We work with a whole bunch of people, all internationally. And we host every year Roll for Wishes, which is a big, huge campaign drive in October to raise money for Make-A-Wish International to help critically ill kids recover and get back to normalcy and their families and all that good stuff. So there's that. I personally also, every game that I run is fundraising for something. We've fundraised for the Trans Empowerment Project. We've fundraised for, oh God, we're moving to Rainbow Railroad. We've been doing the Trans Lifeline as well. All very trans because I'm trans, and it's my community, and I want to help my community as much as possible, especially in the dark times that we are all moving through currently. But yeah, you can find me April 12th doing Imagine Nights 5e one shot. I'm not GMing it. We have the lovely Wraith, who is new to AP actually, but has written content and extended content for Imagine Nights, and we're so excited to host them over on Logomancy to run a one shot of their own written module that you can get. Yeah, I'll also in the near future be watching for an announcement on that. Be running with M. Hubbard, Trad Wolves, TTRPG, GMless TTRPG about tradwife influencers that are all secretly werewolves. With myself and Danny Mendoza and Vixie Bell, and that's it. It's just the four of us because it's GMless. So there's that. And then, yeah, keep an ear to the ground for the near future. We will have season 1.5 of Emergent Shattered Future Gold Rush taking place in the early 1900s as our heroes will be venturing up the Rocky Mountains in olden times to help settle Clarktown, which is the predecessor to Kimberly, where Shattered Future Season 1 takes place, all through the perspective of Carl McIntosh's Wilderness Survival Guide journal. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. That is coming later this year. Yeah, and that's me. Crimson, your turn.
Hi everyone, Crimson Soul. Like I said, normally Cyberpunk VTuber. Here is the panelist today. You can catch me twitch.tv/Crimson Soul _. You can catch me Tuesdays at Stat Monkey Presents as Witness in Rotted Capes, a game about the superhero zombie apocalypse. You can catch me Mondays on oh man, I can't believe I forgot the channel. It's a new show. It's all right. It's new.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Crimson, keep going.
Cool. Oh, there you go. I was opened the Discord to check the channel, and I accidentally joined a voice channel.
Whoops.
That's
Happens to the
right.
best of
Whoops.
us.
Hey, don't look into it. On Valdrian's channel for Thirsty Store Lesbians. And you can catch me on a third long form story that I don't know if I could talk about yet, but coming up pretty soon to a stream near you. And you can catch me on my new channel that I'm getting started up pretty soon now, YouTube Red Room Adventures. We are going to be, I've been recording 2 shots with different friends based off of whatever book I want to work on at the time to see what's going on. I'm in the middle of editing an all black VTuber cast for Root.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And I'm
Ooh,
recording a Triangle Agency this week in 3 minutes. next month, Mothership. So lots of things show on the horizon. Catch me around. Don't let me get stressed out. And finally, I'll pass over to Zeal.
All right. Did you want to get something in there really quick before?
Yeah, I'm also working on a pre-recorded Alien project right now.
Okay,
So keep an eye out for that.
All right. So I'm Zeal or Scott. You can find me. My pronouns are he, him. You can find me everywhere at ZealZaddy. That's on YouTube, on Twitch, on all my socials, whatever. Even on TikTok, I finally got it. It used to be ZealZaddy RPG.
Hell yeah, old man.
Drove me nuts. Finally got it. We are getting ready to run a Daggerheart campaign that'll be probably about a year. It'll be a longer campaign. I don't normally do them, but I've decided I'm going to learn the game on the fly the hard way and force myself into not reading the book, but reading the book a little bit at a time as I go. And players are going to be amazing. I'm also working on and getting ready to launch Paper Bag, the role-playing game show, which will be, I think we'll be starting it next month. If you see like secret test stream, that's us testing things out, technology, timings, player stuff. And I'm in the background, I'm prepping for maybe running public access because it's freaky and weird and really cool. And I'm kind of digging it.
I immediately thought of you when public access came out.
I immediately backed it.
I'm like,
like,
Zeal's gonna run this game. I can feel it in my bones.
Yeah, it's in my body and brain already. But you can catch all of our VODs, all of our streams end up on YouTube, so they're all there. There are a few episodes behind on the Triangle Agency. I think I have 2 episodes to upload, but most of it's there. And 1 episode of Haro the Blotted Plain is getting prepped and it'll be up there. So follow us everywhere. I do charity streams for other streamers. I don't do them on my own channel. I do them on others. So if you need someone to run something for one shots, I do all the weird games no one thinks about. That's it.
All right. Thank you, everyone, so much. Again, thank you to those who have watched, and thank you to our panelists. I know that I'm getting ready to run a campaign in 2027, but that's beside the point because schedules are scheduling. But I know that I learned a bunch from listening to all of you speak. So thank you all so much for agreeing to do this. As one last reminder for our audience, I have just thrown our donation links back into the chat because this event, as with all of the events for Screens We Share, is raising money for Open Cupboard. So if you go and you donate and you send proof of a donation of any amount to nerdswdice@gmail.com, you will be entered into our giveaway. Again, as of last time that I checked, which was before this stream, we were $75 away from hitting our first giveaway, which is a chance to win PDFs of potentially 4 different games. Emergent is one of them. So if you heard Neon hyping up Emergent, you can get a free
get Emergent
PDF copy, or you can go buy it.
Emergent.
I think
go
everybody
get
here
Emergent.
has Emergent, but you can go get Emergent if you don't have Emergent.
My Emergent.
Physical books.
I should have bought that book off of you at PAX U. I have big regrets.
If you need any additional
books,
motivation to buy Emergent, and Quinn doesn't know this, but I am actually developing new powers and will eventually be releasing them to playtest fairly soon, actually.
Emergent, if you didn't feel like Mask is enough and you need something a little bit juicier to sink your teeth into, try Emergent.
If you want a PDF copy of that, you can either go buy it, or if you enter our giveaway, you could have the chance to win a copy for free. If the game PDF is I don't know, like $20 I think for the PDF because it is a hefty PDF that a lot of time and
It's
graphic
big.
design
It's
work
like
went
over
into.
400 pages.
It's hard to
Oh, yeah.
open. In fact, it's so big. So if you donate, $5 to Open Cupboard, you could get a chance to get that game PDF for a donation of $5.
And Look at all
So
these wonderful people that helped work on it. Include Quinn's in there somewhere.
on
Yeah,
the
there's
top
Quinn.
somewhere. Yeah, yeah.
And there's our other good friend Monroe, who's all their games on itch are on sale, so go check that out too. Sorry, I'll stop hyping up this game.
We could sit here pitching games and other people and hyping things up for hours, but as we've already mentioned, folks have other games to get off to. So we are going to wrap up for today. If you want to see our last panel, we talked a lot about communication today. We have a continuing communication at the panel, at the table panel. That's a lot of words. Going live on
Continuing table
YouTube
communication
tomorrow.
Okay.
Pre-recorded panel that will be up on YouTube tomorrow.
Nice.
And then we have all of our events for week 4. When we're about to go to our end screen, it is not accurate because I still have the end screen loaded in from when we thought we were going to do this 2 weeks ago when OBS killed my computer. But we do have a lot of other games and things coming in this last week and a half of our charity event. So do check those out on Blue Sky. We also have 2 casting calls that are closing today, one of which is for Rotted Capes, if that sounds like an interesting game with the superheroes and the zombies. And the other is for a game that Crimson is running. So you can go check out those casting calls before they close sometime this evening in Pacific time because I'm the one who's going to be closing them. That is officially all. I have pitched and hyped all of the things that I have to pitch and hype. Thank you everyone for being here, and we will see you at our next game or panel.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Fun.
Bye.